Hey YouTube, it's Eric. I'm gonna try to keep this one fairly quick. I've been adding books that I've read onto archive.org. I'm gonna show you if you click on my account page at archive.org, you can have access to this like digital library I'm putting together. Right now I have about 30, 32 32 archives on this library, but I'm going to keep updating it as time goes on. I just want to let you guys know if you want to read, some of the books I'm reading, I'll link you to that. This is I used a PDF merger website too. I'll show you I created this. I'll show you some of the PDFs I merged. But the first book I uploaded to archive.org was Catholic Terror Today. I made videos on these three Aver Manhattan books: Catholic Terror Today, The Dollar in the Vatican, and Catholic Power Today. I got those from the University of Toronto library and scanned them in. I also put some of Avro's other books on here. This book here, this is one of Avro's rare books here, Towards a New Italy. This was the first political book that Avro wrote in 1943. This is the same year that H.G. Wells. I haven't uploaded H.G. Wells's book Crux Ansata to this library yet, but H.G. Wells wrote Crux Ansata in 1943 as well, and Wells does the preface to Avro's book here. This is when Avro was going by the name Telfio Gardini. This book here, Catholic Victory in 1960, I've done a video on my channel recommending it. This is a great book by Peter J. Doiswick. This here, this is interesting. This was an archive post I got from the CIA's digital reading room, but it's a story from the Washington Post in the 70s titled CIA Tried to Use Georgetown Medical Center in the 1950s. Some interesting quotes in there, to say the least. I recommended this in a video, Covert Action Information Bulletin, Special Nazis, the Vatican, and the CIA. There's great information in here. I really recommend you go through that. This Covert Action Information Bulletin was good too, the CIA and religion. In particular, in this issue here, number 18, there's a good article on Opus Dei, which is very good. This is an interesting book here. I converted this from an EPUB into a PDF. But this was an autobiography that was written by Frank Commodore Walker, who was the head of the DNC in the 1940s and who was Jesuit trained, and he was very close to Franklin. He was very close in the Franklin Roosevelt administration. See, the book's called FDR's Quiet Confident, and Frank C. Walker became FDR's personal representative to Japan. And there's lots of interesting information in this autobiography, so I link that. This book here is very interesting. I know the channel Tom Frice at Inquisition Update read this book out on his channel, but I found this book on LibGen, so I decided to upload it to archive.org. But this is the book from the former United States ambassador to the Vatican, Francis Rooney, who is a Knight of Malta, Jesuit trained at Georgetown Prep in Georgetown, and currently sits on the board of the Panama Canal Authority and is in the House of Representatives in Florida. But it's written with obviously with the Catholic bias, but there's tons of revealing information in here, like tons, especially like when Francis Rooney is just writing about his diplomatic missions in Rome. This is published in 2013. I recommend you guys read that. This was an interesting. I found this when I was doing my research on J. Edgar Hoover, but this was like from like the National Catholic Wealth NCWC National Catholic Welfare Conference News Service, August 2nd, 1950. The story of J. Edgar Hoover giving the Jesuit priest Robert S. Lloyd a chalice is in here. Lots of other interesting stories. Like in the first story, like Cardinal Spellman advocates more Catholic priests to become military chaplains. Lots of interesting information in this little NCWC news bulletin from 1950. I recommend you check that out. This book here is very interesting here. It's called Vatican Secret Diplomacy. Joseph P. Hurley was a Jesuit trained American Papal nuncio. Um, very interesting information in here. Like in this just quickly, probably like some of the most revealing information. This book was written by a Jesuit, so there is a bias to it, but there's still lots of revealing information. Joseph P. Hurley was exchanging uh, U.S. State Department documents with Sumner Wells, and Wells was Roosevelt's Secretary of State, but like he had Roosevelt's Secretary of State Sumner Welles was giving this Vatican priest Joseph P. Hurley papal documents, and here's his Wikipedia if you want to search it up. This was a biography that was written on Joseph Patrick Hurley. He's an American prelate of the Roman Catholic Church, and then he served as the Bishop of St. Augustine. There's interesting info in this book how Joseph Patrick Hurley was even close with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King spoke in Hurley's St. Augustine diocese. But this is a very interesting book. It was published by Yale University Press. Lots of interesting information too on Myron Taylor as well in this book. So I recommend you check this one out. This book kind of complements Francis Rooney's book, The Global Vatican, really well. This one here, I used a PDF merger. This is Theodore Greisinger's book. I'm going to upload his other book, The Jesuits, too. But I merged volumes 1 and 2 of this book into a PDF. On Google Books, volume 1 and volume 2 are separate, so I put them together into one. So now, like, this book runs up to like 755 pages. But you can read Mysteries of the Vatican or Crimes of the Papacy by Theodore Greisinger, 1864. This is like a classic right here. This goes all the way back to the beginning of the papacy, and he takes it all the way up to the present time of 1864 in great detail. But I recommend you read this one, Mysteries of the Vatican. You can read volume 1 and 2 now in a single document. This book came out recently. This was Douglas Waller's biography on Wild Bill Donovan, who was given the Knight of St. Sylvester. He was a Knight of Malta, who's the head of the OSS. In this book, you can actually see a picture of Cardinal Francis Spellman giving Wild Bill Donovan his Knight of St. Sylvester in the Vatican. But there's tons of interesting information. Like William Donovan was meeting with the heads of the NKVD, the Russian intelligence service. The chapter on the Vatican is very interesting. The whole book is interesting. Um, Yes, I recommend you check that out. This is written in 2011 by Douglas Waller, the biography on Wild Bill Donovan. Um, I found this is a really good. I know I saw there's a couple PDFs online of Edmund Paris's book, The Secret History of the Jesuits, but I got this like rip off of LibGen, and it's very like crisp. Like I saw in a few of the PDFs, like some of the font is different, and one of them's a Word document, but this is all the font is the same throughout this digital version of Edmund Paris's classic, The Secret History of the Jesuits in 1983. So I recommend you check that out. This is a very good book, to say the least. Some of the best information I've seen written, connecting the Jesuits and the Vatican to Nazi Germany in particular. But this whole book is good. And I'm going to keep updating this as I keep going through. This is a good pamphlet I've uploaded. This is from Leo H. Lehman. Leo Herbert Lehman wrote a pamphlet, The Vatican Policy in the Second World War. It's like 46 pages. Very hard hitting, good information. I recommend you check that out. This is another PDF merged file I put together. This is very interesting. This with all the files I merged, it comes up to 28 pages. But I put 4 declassified documents that were released, which that were sent from Charles Douglas Jackson to Alan Dulles and Henry Luce on the topic of Pro-Dio. Pro-Dio was an intelligence network that was started by a Dominican Belgian priest, Father Felix A. Morlian. And Pro-Dio merged with the OSS during the middle of World War II, and Pro-Dio was instrumental in working with the OSS in getting high-level Nazis out of Nazi Germany and into most cases, these high-level Nazis became American intelligence assets. Just look at Klaus Barbie, um, Reinhard Gehlen, Otto Ambrose, an IG Farben chemist, became a board member at Knight of Malta, Peter J. Grace's W.R. Grace Co., and the Nazi Otto Ambrose then became an advisor to the Knight of Malta, Konrad Adenauer's uh, government in West Germany. And Adenauer had like tons of ex-Nazis in his administration. Just another one, like Dr. Frank Six was in Eisenhower's administration. But there's 4 declassified letters in here. And I linked the pamphlet that Proto released in 1957. This is the only photo I've seen of Felix A. Morlian, and it's in this pamphlet. There's lots of interesting information. Like Luis de Gasperi, the Italian prime minister, um, who won the his rigged elections in 1948. Even like the gatekeepers like Jesuit trained Philip Agee will tell you that the CIA financed the Italian elections in 1948. But Leo Gasperi was a Pro-Dio member, and that's in this little pamphlet. But these are very interesting declassified documents. Like the name of the Belgian or the name of the Dominican general is in this these documents. Yeah, so I recommend you check that out. I merged these together. Declassified documents from C.D. Jackson to Allen Dulles and Henry Luce. Interestingly, when the Jesuit Joseph Rettinger was touring to the United States, one of the first people he saw was C.D. Jackson. There's no there's no preview for this book here, but I uploaded Avram Manhattan's The Vatican and World Politics, 1949. This is a classic, and everyone has, I'd say it's required reading in this field. It's one of the first books that really woke me up to what was going on in the world. Just recommend that one. This is another declassified document I uploaded here. This is a declassified CIA document that says Allen Dulles met with Heinrich Himmler in Operation Sunrise, and the paper is titled "CIA and Nazi War Criminals and Colonel," or I think that's what that's abbreviated to. Chapters 1 to 10, draft working paper. It's like 31 pages, but there's tons of interesting information. This really complements the Covert Action Information Bulletin 25 down here. The special on the Nazis, the Vatican, and the CIA. And then I have a physical of this book, but I found this for free off LibGen, surprisingly. But I uploaded this. I have this again. I'd say this is required reading. This is the Popes Against the Jews: The Vatican's Role in the Rise of the Modern Anti-Semitism. This goes all the way back, like covering the Vatican's persecution of the Jews. Going back to like the Middle Ages. All the way up to the Dreyfus Affair, and all the anti-Semitic publishing of the Jesuit Civica Cattolica magazine, the Observatore Romano, and all the whole. David Kurtzer proves that the Catholics, and in particular the Jesuits, were subconsciously implanting anti-Semitic ideas into the mass populace. And David Kurtzer writes about how the Catholics' anti-Semitic publishing made it easier for Hitler and Mussolini to enact their racial laws, which it no doubt did. But yeah, this is a very good book here. I have a physical copy of this one, but you can read it for free now on a digital PDF. The Popes Against the Jews by David Kurtzer. It came out in 2002. And I recommended this book in a previous video, but I uploaded this. This is a biography on Joseph Ignatius Breen, the Jesuit-trained head of the Production Code Administration. This is a biography written on him by Thomas Doherty in 2007, called Hollywood Censor. Really good book. Tons of revealing information. Like after reading this book, like it proves that like the Jews do not control Hollywood. The Roman Catholic Church does, and you'll see that when reading this book. I have this book and a physical. This is David Farber's. This is a biography on the Knight of Malta, John J. Raskob, who became the head of the Democratic National Committee in the late 1920s. Raskob also at one point was the chairman of the Liberty League, which was implicated in the business plot scandal in 1933. Raskob, lots of information on Raskob's relation to the Vatican in this book, particularly chapter 12, but even it's a good business history as well, just with his relations with General Motors and the fallout with Billy Durant, the founder of General Motors. There's kind of like the DuPonts and the Morgans had like a big corporate coup d'etat and took ownership of GM from Billy Durant, who founded the company. Some information on that in this book. There's more information on that corporate coup d'etat I just referenced in Gerard Colby's great book DuPont Dynasty: Behind the Nylon Curtain, which I haven't uploaded yet. But this was I uploaded this here. This was I did a video on this. This was a like a JPEG image of the Chicago Tribune, May 5th, 1903 story of the Archbishop James Edward Quigley saying that the Catholic Church will rule the world with the United States. But you can read this now. If you click on the image and just zoom in, you can then read this whole story here. See Quigley as an optimist. And you see here the Chicago Daily Tribune, Tuesday, May 5th, 1903. Very, very revealing story to say the least. You see America will rule the world. Yeah. So you can read that. And I'm gonna keep updating this as I keep going on. But this one is really interesting. I have Giovanni Niccoloni's book, The History of the Jesuits, in a physical copy. But this is the first or a book he wrote before that called The History of the Pontificate of Pius IX by Giovanni Niccoloni. Giovanni Niccoloni was a Roman statesman, and this book was written in 1851. It really takes you into the lively mood of you get the ins and outs of what was going on in Rome at this time, and this book proves that the papacy doesn't care about his the Italian people whatsoever. You'll see that in the Revolution of 1848, the papacy got the French and the Austrians to march into Rome to put down his own Roman Italians. Very interesting information. Giovanni Niccoloni shows in this book how Pius IX was completely controlled by the Jesuits, and his early Pius IX came off as a very liberal, progressive pope at the beginning, and Giovanni Niccoloni shows that that was nothing but a Jesuitical screen that he put on. So that's a good book. This book you can find other PDFs of this book here. Leo H. Lehman. I recommend. But I found this is Behind the Dictators. But the only other PDF rips I've seen of Behind the Dictators are like a Word document. But I found an original a PDF version of an original print. You see from 1942. But this is Behind the Dictators by Leo H. Lehman. This is a very good book. It's pretty short. It's like 67 pages, but it shows the power of the Roman Catholic Church. And one chapter in particular that's great is the chapter on the Elders of Zion. And David Kurtzer's book also has great information on the Catholic connections to propping up the Elders of Zion. It was a French Roman Catholic priest, Ernest Junin, who founded the Judeo-Masonic league. Who this Catholic priest Ernest Junin spent his entire life spreading the protocols of the Elders of Zion. This was an interesting PDF here that I found just kind of out of the blue on the internet a while back. This was the Leo H. Lehman, who just wrote that book I showed, Behind the Dictators, ran this magazine called the Converted Catholic Magazine in the 1940s. And I found out Peter J. Doiswick was an associated editor who wrote a great book, Catholic Victory in 1960, which I have on this library. But yeah, this was a magazine, that Lehman and Doiswick were connected to, and it has good information. This was a converted Catholic magazine from March 1949. There's lots of good information, just on these guys were very. For me, reading Protestant authors, I resonate, with what Protestant authors have to say, and these they talk about their faith a bit, and there's also articles in this paper that go into exposing the Roman Catholic Church. They talk about how the Knights of Columbus have attacked their magazine with propaganda. Another interesting information. But yeah, this was a cool magazine right here, and I just kind of have literally long story short, just the way I found this magazine, the when I clicked on Google, it was a bunch of random numbers and letters, and I clicked on it, and then it just Converted Catholic Magazine pops up. It was kind of weird. Just I kind of came across it out of the blue. Just kind of like this Peter J. Doiswick's book, who is a member or associate editor of the Converted Catholic. I found this book literally in a declassified CIA file. I was looking up information on Alan Dulles in the CIA reading room, and I clicked on Alan Dulles' letter to Laura Rosewood, and then there's in that PDF file, this entire book was in that file. I'm very lucky to find it. And then this is another merged book I did here. This is by Count Paul von Heusbruck, 14 Years a Jesuit, volumes 1 and 2, written in 1911, translated from German to English. Count Paul von Heusbruck was a Jesuit, and he gives incredible inside information onto the ins and outs of the Jesuit order. I think one of the most enlightening passages from this book was how when Count Paul von Heusbruck describes Jesuit wealth as communistic wealth. And so and when you understand that, that's why the individual Jesuit priest himself, is bound to an order of poverty, but all the wealth he generates becomes the order's wealth. But the individual Jesuits don't actually own the wealth of the order. That belongs to, it's a communistic system of wealth gathering. But there's lots of like, this is a great book. Like this volume 1 and 2, this goes up to like 940 pages. This is jam packed. They going full through like the Jesuit constitutions, in particular how the Jesuit ratio studitorum. This is fantastic information. So yeah, check that out here. 14 Years of Jesuit, Volume 1 and 2. And the last book I've uploaded to my library is Lord Baltimore's Struggle with the Jesuits, 1634 to 1649, written by Alfred Pierce Dennis from the Annual Report of the American Historical Association for 1900, Volume 1. This is really interesting. You know, where Cecil Calvert, the second Lord Baltimore, had like a feud with the Jesuits. I've on Tom Price's channel, he had a guest on who read a letter that Cecil Calvert wrote to Lloyd Calvert, and Cecil Calvert was warning his brother about the Jesuit plot in Maryland. But this article talks about how Cecil Calvert, um, a lot of where he beefed with the Jesuits were on how the Jesuits were um, using Indians to usurp his like temporal, or to usurp his like legal juris, jurisprudistic dominion in Maryland. And it's very interesting information. And this Lord Cecil Calvert like essentially adopted like a Protestant government to get rid of the Jesuit. Like his cabinet was like 80% Protestant because he was trying to get the Jesuits out of his colony at the time. But this is an interesting little article from 1901. But this is just I'm gonna keep adding to this, but I think this is, you know, all these readings, you know, kind of complement each other really well. And even just with what I have on here so far, like if you read through all these, like you'll be very informed on what is happening in the world right now. Like it's Jesuit Hegelian geopolitics. That's what's going on. But this is you'll see like if you read through all these, and I'm gonna keep adding more, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. And my archive.org account um, name is EricBowman77. And a way to find it is you go to the very, if you're on an individual book, you go down to the very bottom and it says uploaded by EricBowman77. You can click on that. My whole page will come up and you can see the library with all the books that I've put up and articles and declassified memos. And yeah, I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Let's see if anyone's in the chat. Hey, seeing yeah, thanks guys for watching. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think I think you guys will really like these. These ones in particular, like this PDF, I think will fascinate you guys. This declassified documents from C.D. Jackson to Alan Dulles on the Prodeo. There's also information on Prodeo in this special here. The Father Felix Memorial, and actually you can there's lots of sites that have covered this, but in the Bulgarian connection, or yeah, the Bulgarian connection hoax of 1983, when Muhammad Aga was said to have attempted to kill John Paul II on behalf of the Soviets. It turned out Sergei Antonov, one of like Aga's like associates, lived in the same apartment building as Father Felix Moylan. He lived one floor down from him. So like, you know, like this the covert action information bulletin posits that it was Father Felix Moylan who supplied Aga like with all of his information and like took photos of like Aga's apartment. And because like that whole, you know, like, that whole Bulgarian connection was a complete uh disinformation psychological warfare op. But yeah, good night, guys. I'm seeing if Trump will. I don't know. We'll have to see. You know, Trump is. I haven't. I know. I haven't read like. I haven't seen like in terms of like reading on what Trump's doing in the media. I haven't. It's been a few weeks since I've plugged into like what he's doing, but I can't see, um, him having any real beef with the Jesuits or the system. If anything, Trump is. I think the whole time he's been running as like the perfect controlled opposition. Just like essentially using the same tactics as like Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler ran with the tactics saying we're going to make Germany great again, just like how Trump's saying we're going to make America great again. Hitler was saying how he's gonna rid Germany of the quote unquote deep state, the Jewish bankers who are controlling everything. Just like Trump says he's gonna rid us of like the globalists. There's a lot of similarities. Like even Trump's campaign slogan "Make America Great Again" comes from the fascist papal knight William Randolph Hearst. So like and Trump like he comes from like the mob in Atlantic City that like Jesuit trained at Georgetown Frank A. Farley, according to the United States Kefauver Commission hearings, like was like controlling Atlantic City. And Frank Farley was like the Republican congressman from Atlantic City County, Jesuit trained, who was operating the mob there. But Trump came up in like the Atlantic City mob, so he's been very connected to the system. Like Trump's sister, Marianne Trump, I did a did a post of this on my blog. Literally, Donald Trump's sister, Marianne Trump, like credits the Jesuits with saving her life. And like Marianne Trump donates millions of dollars to Fairfield University. Like, like supposedly Donald Trump's having this tough war on immigration. Then like, why would Donald Trump nominate Lee Cisna, who is Jesuit trained at Georgetown University, to head the immigration department? So it's like Donald Trump's gonna quote unquote take on the deep state, with their globalist policies. And who does he make his U.S. trade representative? Who's going to be, negotiating these trade agreements with the quote unquote globalists? He nominates Robert Lighthizer, who went to Georgetown. So I could go on and on and on, but I think Trump. I don't know. Ultimately I think he's running as a simulated like, controlled opposition candidate to like, or um his whole charade is to to pretend that like he's fighting against the deep state when he's not. It's very powerful propaganda. That's why I think so many people have fallen for like the QAnon propaganda, because it is powerful propaganda. Rulers have used it over and over again to manipulate people. A lot that Mussolini even used like similar propaganda. He said he's gonna rid like get it like he was using the anti-communist line a lot, but he said he was gonna rid give Italy back to the Italians, rid Italy of the deep state. You know, Same lines always played. But yeah, I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love, and namaste. I'll catch you on the next one.